Hey guys and girls, Board now and Rachel McDonald back with you. On this video, we will be talking about the Stranger Things Season 1 finale, so Stranger Things Season 1, Episode 8, Chapter 8, and it's called The Upside Down, which is the perfect title for the final episode. So the characters deep into the Upside Down as they desperately tried to get to Will in time and then try to save him once they do come across him. And we again get them sort of split up doing various things. So obviously Nancy and Jonathan have decided by the end of the last episode that Hopper and Joyce don't quite know what they're getting into. We need to try and tackle this thing ourselves. Nancy obviously had that great line, let's finish what we started. So they actually go off, back to his house to actually fight this thing. That then involves Steve as he continues his redemption, which is pretty impressive stuff once again. When Al is like still recovering from what happened when things got very intense at the end of the last one. There's some nice stuff with her and Mike, but once the kids realize that Nancy and Jonathan have sneaked off, they then start to get ideas about how they can, fight this thing and sort of do their bit. And some tense stuff with Hopper and with Joyce, because they at the end of the last episode, they got nabbed by the government officials. They get brought in, and obviously Joyce is having none of it, she said, because obviously what's his last name? Brannigan or something?
Brenner.
Oh, Brenner.
Dr. Brenner.
Yeah, Dr. Brenner. Yeah, very, very ominous. He's obviously trying to like cozy up to Joyce and trying to sour on. We promised we'll, save Will and stuff, and nothing will happen to him. And she's having none of it because she knows that this is the asshole who has put her son in danger in the first place. Covered it up. And again, there's some great stuff with Joyce. And I do have a question, actually, because Hopper offers them a deal, them out, if they help them. And, this, I'll give you the location, just let us go and find Will, show us where he is. And they obviously show them where it is, and you get a long spell of the episode of them going through the Upside Down searching for Will, which again is all very effective. But it's so they make that deal. Then if they give them Al, then none of the other kids will come to any danger, sort of thing. And I just wanted to ask you, is that a legitimate offer from Hopper, or does he have like a different plan? It seems to be sort of legitimate.
Yeah, I have to say I'd forgotten about that. I had actually forgotten that Hopper betrays Elle, and I remembered like a split second before he made the deal, and I was like, "Oh, Hopper, you suck." But Stephen was watching with me, and he pointed out, and he's not wrong. In that moment, Hopper is focused on Will. I think that's all he can focus on at that point, is because he's using saving Will as a replacement for the fact that he couldn't save his own daughter, and that is emphasized by the fact that this is the first episode where we actually get flashbacks of Hopper and his daughter, like proper flashbacks, and we see how she got sick and we see how it affected Hopper. So I think in the moment, he was just so focused on finding Will that he thought, okay, we'll give them Elle and I can sort out later, the implications. I think in that moment, it's like you have to save the kid that is in the most immediate danger. It's like the trolley problem, almost. It's like in that instant, it's like he needed a way to get to Will, to save Will, and the only way he could do that was to give them Elle. And maybe he thought, because he knows that they're experimenting on her, so maybe he thought if he gives Elle to them, she's not going to die. She's going to go back to a bad place, but she's not going to die. And he's already broken into this facility once, so maybe he's thinking after all this is over, he can get her back out. Whereas if he doesn't do that, Will is going to die. They know that. They know that Will is like so close to death. So while on the one hand, I'm not really impressed with Hopper because I'm like, come on, dude, like you're literally handing her back to like her abuser. On the other hand, it's like, what do you do in that situation? Like you have to kind of prioritize, and as horrible as it sounds, you have to kind of be a bit pragmatic. So I think it was more just like he was just desperate. He needed to save Will, and in the moment, he made a deal that would let him save Will. He knew that they wouldn't kill Elle, so he knew that she wasn't in danger of dying, and he probably just thought to himself, I can deal with that later. You know, later on, I can come back into this facility, I can find her, I can help her. But in this immediate moment, I need to save this other child. And if I have to give one child over to save another, then that's maybe the only way to do it. It maybe was just one of those situations where he just couldn't see another option. So not a great move, but maybe an understandable one given how dire Will's situation is. So that was my opinion on that.
Prioritize,
Insight into Hopper this episode. You know, obviously we see the flashbacks with him and his daughter, and we see, you know, as he's telling Joyce to breathe, he remembers when his daughter first got sick and telling her to breathe. And I think there's a toy he sees in the lab that looks like a toy that his daughter had. So we really get to see, you know, the tragedy of Hopper in this episode, and we get to see how that is motivating him. And it's really sad, you know, to see how broken Hopper really has become. I mean, I was saying to Stephen, you know, losing anyone you love is hard. Losing a child, because, you know, the natural order of things is your children are supposed to outlive you. They're not supposed to die. And to die from a disease like cancer that you have no control over. So again, I think that's really driving Hopper's situation. He thinks, I can control this situation. I can save this boy, and that will redeem me somehow for not being able to save my own daughter, even though it was not his fault at all that his daughter died. You know, he obviously has the survivor's guilt a bit. So I love Hopper's characterization in this episode. I think it's really good, and it really hit for me when we saw the flashbacks with his daughter. Did you like Hopper's arc in this one?
I did, because I think it's obviously the seed has been planted from the start, like the first couple of episodes about it is something that happened to him in the past, and it's obviously his role as like the local sheriff. He should take a missing kids series seriously anyway, but it just adds more to the character and more to his motivation and why it is so personal for him, and it matters so much. Then he can't lose another kid, sort of thing. So it does recreate that situation, link things up a bit too much, and they can sort of sometimes these flashback, and sometimes it's just they can make like a personal connection a bit too much, so it's like over. But I think this is one where they get it about right, and it definitely, especially since they mentioned it earlier in the season, and it sort of plants the seed. So.
And David Harbour is so good in the role, and he really plays him with just enough, you know, toughness, and, you know, so that you can believe Renegade Hopper, but he also has enough vulnerability that you appreciate the softer moments, you know, with Joyce and with the kids and stuff. So I think he does a really good job of selling the different layers to the character.
I think he knows as an actor the sort of how to underplay stuff as well, and just to be a bit more calm in certain scenes as well. So that's he definitely gets a good balance, and obviously everything cranks up.
Yes, it's a very tense scene them go through the Upside Down, and I mean Joyce is awesome as always. The scene that you mentioned where she tells off Brenna, it's brilliant. I absolutely love when she's like, stop, I know who you are, I know what you've done, you took my boy from me, you know, we had a funeral, we buried him, and she's like, I don't want anything from you, and I'm like, yeah, you're awesome.
That's great. So another thing, just going back to the Hopper thing and the deal we made, is another reason he might have done it is then maybe he thought ultimately then these government officials aren't going to stop unless they've got Elle. And he might have just thought that might have been in the long run, because it's that thing of even if they escape and even if you kill off like these sets of officials or whatever, then they might just keep sending more.
They might keep coming. This is the only way to stop them.
yeah, he might have been thinking of like the kids and the families, thinking that these guys probably aren't going to stop until they've got Elle type thing. So in a
Yeah, that
way,
is a possibility.
best
Yeah.
for everyone.
Alongside it, we have Nancy and Jonathan getting the house ready, which again we see them, setting all their traps and setting everything up. I really like that little kind of mini montage where you see them setting up the bear trap and Jonathan nailing the nails
Yeah,
into
it's
the
great.
bat and everything, and that's great. And then, of course, we have Steve Harrington, who is just yeah, love Steve. Again, we have another great moment because he's come to Jonathan's house completely independent of Nancy. He doesn't know that Nancy's
Yeah, he
there.
doesn't. She's
He's
there.
just come because he wants to apologize and he wants to make amends, and he's just awesome. I love Steve. And he comes in and he pushes his way in and he's like, what the hell is going on? Because fair enough, you've walked into this house that is absolutely trashed. Your girlfriend's there with a gun that she's pointing at you, which what was Nancy going to do? Was she really going to shoot him? That seems a bit extreme, when she's trying to get him out and
It's
she points the gun at him.
but you understand it because like she's pretty confident he's going to back off then, and that's good because it sort of shows that she still cares about him because she's doing it for his own good essentially. It shows when she still cares about him and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's obviously again Nancy being pretty bad ass, and it's a really fun scene, like the visuals of this scene and how it plays out as a horror scene because it's all dark in the house and you've got the lights sort of dim.
The lights flashing.
They start flashing. So visually, it's all really good, and the monster stuff looks good. And actually, I can't really fault Steve's involvement because I think when I first saw it, I thought, well, does he really need to be in this scene? And obviously, I wasn't thinking so much about his redemption maybe at the time, and it's obviously part of that. But actually, him inserted here makes for really good drama. It actually adds to the drama of the scene. I do like actually them both telling him to shut up at one point when they're both. They sort of do it in unison.
Him to go, and he does, and then again, like you just kind of think like Nancy and Jonathan are prepared for this monster. They've seen it before. They know what it does. They've got everything. Steve has never seen this monster. He doesn't even know the supernatural exists. And instead of running, he's like, no, fuck this. I'm going back into the house and I'm going to help save them. He doesn't know what he's walking into, but he goes back in and he gets his bat, which becomes his iconic bat, and he beats the crap out of the monster. I just think, again, it's such a subversion of what you would expect from this character. Instead of running away, because he very easily could have just left. He could have just gotten in his car and gone and pretended that none of this happened. He didn't have to walk back into that. I mean, literally 2 minutes after he's found out that this monster exists, he's back there fighting it, and I just think just such a great character moment. And I love that they do get it into the bear trap and they light it on fire, and then they realize that they only injured it. And then we get that beautiful little crossover where you see that Joyce is in the house in the Upside Down, and she and Jonathan can sense each other. And Jonathan is like, Mum, is that you? And Joyce in the Upside Down is like, Jonathan. And so it kind of emphasizes how Will could talk to Joyce, in the Upside Down. And you see the lights lighting up as Joyce is walking and Jonathan's following the lights. He's like, I don't think that's
really good.
It is. It's a really sweet scene. Again, it just shows the bond between Joyce and her sons. And again, like it's a little callback to how Will was talking to his mother from the Upside Down. So I really like that. And I thought that was like a really nice touch to show how it works between the worlds and how Joyce has this bond with her sons. And that whole scene with Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan and the monster, it's a great horror scene.
I really love that stuff. And I think the other thing about the stuff with Steve obviously getting involved is it's consistent again with the themes of the show, the themes of the younger people in the show stepping up and being proactive. He's proactive in that scene, and it's it does really a lot for his character to be so proactive and not to just be chicken go away. So it definitely fits with what we've seen in this series. So obviously Dustin trying to recharge Elle with the with the
Chocolate
pudding. I
pudding,
forget
yeah.
which pudding was it again.
Chocolate. Mike, I found the chocolate pudding.
Yeah. and that's good. That's just really getting inside a kid's head. You know, it's like, yeah, of course. What else is she going to recover on?
Exactly.
That's great stuff. And
Mm.
yeah, really sweet scene with Mike and Elle where he actually asks her out, and it's all awkward and stuff because, you know,
Well, they're 11.
all this is over, you can come and live with us, and they'll be your family in a way. And this is a good scene for a number of reasons, but one reason is it obviously sells what happens later with Elle. It makes that more important, sort of thing. But yeah, he's sort of being quite awkward about when says, well, will you be my brother like a brother? And he says no, and it's all awkward. And that's when he slowly starts to ask her out. And obviously it's a really tender scene because Elle doesn't understand this. She's not used to like this world and to the idea of dating people and how that sort of works. So it's actually, which is one of the big things about science fiction as a genre, it's to do with communication sort of thing. And so I do like then actually to cut through the mustard of it, he actually then just kisses her to see. And that's obviously like a universal way of expressing your feelings. So it's I do like that in that moment when he kisses her, she actually realizes, yeah, okay, this is what he means. Because things more important later when obviously Elle sacrifices herself and stuff.
It is a really cute scene. And I also like it for the fact that Mike is offering her, again, something that she's never had, a family. You know, he talks about how his mum will take care of her and, you know, she'll be able to eat as many Eggos as she wants and she'll be able to sleep in a proper bed and just all things that she's never experienced. Because, again, we've seen what her life has been like. It's been surrounded by grown-ups who just use her and manipulate her. She's never had anyone be caring towards her. So the fact that he's offering her all that is just really lovely. And it just makes it that much sadder as we get to the climax.
It really does. I'll say at this point, I have no idea what an Eggo is. I have no. I mean, other than it has eggs in. I mean, that's all.
I think it's just a brand. I think it's just a brand of waffles. Because we don't have them here either. So I think I think Eggo's is the brand, and it's just a brand of waffles. Any American viewers, please feel free to correct us. We don't know. We're foreigners. We're Australian and English. We have no idea what's going on here. But I think they're just a brand of waffles. So yeah, that's very sweet scene. And of course, you know, it's interrupted by the bad men. The bad men find them again, and we get the really intense chase scene. Again, I just keep thinking, these are children. They're so little. Leave them alone. But we get to see like the full extent of what Elle can really do if she puts her mind to it, because she full on kills like 5 or 6 of them. She like explodes their brains, man. It's a very intense
that is brutal because the lead in is that you just start to see them bleeding, but then it cuts away, and it's only later when it cuts back, and they're all on the floor.
Squish sound. I think you actually hear like the squish explosion as like their brains explode. I mean, of course, because it was such an exertion of power, she collapses, and then then in comes creepy Matthew Modine. God, he's creepy, isn't he? He plays this role so well. And just that scene where he like picks Elle up and she's like, Papa, and he's like, yes, it's your Papa, and it's like, no, shoo, bad man. And I just find it so sad when she starts to struggle away from him, and then she reaches out and she's like calling, she's like, Mike, and it's so sad because you can see how her trust and her dependability, it's transferred. You know, she knows now that her papa is the bad guy, that he can't be trusted, and she's got someone who actually cares about her. And I just find it so sad when she's reaching out for Mike and she's like, Mike, and then of course the Demogorgon comes because it's attracted by blood and it eats Brenna, and we're so happy.
Definitely what he deserves.
I have heard some fan theories that he's still alive because we don't actually see his body. Like, we see the Demogorgon attack him, and it's pretty much, you know, you kind of believe that yes, he died, but they do kind of leave it open, especially in this kind of show that has science fiction and supernatural. Maybe they carted him off to a lab somewhere and, fixed his brain. I personally think he's dead. But I love that when the Demogorgon comes in, they grab the wrist rocket, because remember they had the wrist rocket earlier, and like they've got the stones and they're trying to like the slingshot, and they're trying to like fight the Demogorgon.
I do like, then the slingshot is actually quite effective. Having, they obviously poo-pooed it previously, and obviously we think as well, that's not really going to do much, but because he actually aims it and it goes into like the mouth of the thing, it actually does help quite a bit.
And then Elle, that scene where it's just so sad when she walks towards the Demogorgon and she has it pinned against the wall, and then she just kind of looks back and she's like, "Goodbye, Mike." And then you see, I think again, Millie Bobby Brown just really shows how good her acting is, because you can see the physical effort it's taking for her to kill the thing. She's screaming and she's shaking, and then she disappears and she's gone. And I just feel so sad after she's disappeared. All the boys are shouting for her, and you can see Mike is like crying, and even Lucas, they're all crying and they're all just like yelling out for her. And it's such a powerful and such a great climax to the episode, because and then after that, obviously we cut to them saving Will. So it's almost like a juxtaposition of Elle is gone, but we managed to save Will. So again, it's like Elle and Will being like interchangeable, kind of children. One's dead, the other one's alive, kind of. They're very linked to each other. But I do love the scene where they bring Will back. Although that being said, when Hopper starts like smacking him on the chest, like I know that he's performing CPR, but I'm like, Hopper, you are a very large man and he is a very little kid. Like, I think you're breaking some ribs here. But and then we get the beautiful reunion in the hospital. I love Will waking up with Joyce and Jonathan there, and Jonathan's brought him the stuff from home with the mixtape, and it's just so nice to see them reunited.
That was very moving. I started to well up at that point.
Me too.
Because Jonathan says, "Oh, you're more worried about me after what you've been through," and obviously I love stuff with Dustin and the rest of the gang when they pile in on him, and it's just like the way the kids would talk, and where they're actually just telling about, hey, this is what you've missed, sort of thing, and they mention that girl crying at his funeral and stuff. And you can imagine from Will's point of view, just this is also real, because it's like, oh, okay, I didn't even realise I'd had a funeral, sort of thing, even though I wasn't, actually dead. I wasn't really around for it, but it's just stuff like that and all this information. But again, it's like, it definitely, this is how kids, they're excited to see their best friend alive and
it's very genuine and very organic. It's definitely how kids would act. And again, it goes back to these kid actors. They're really good, and they found kids that have really good chemistry, and you can believe that they're best friends, and that's their friendship is really strong and they've got that bond. So I think pretty much from when Elle started to get rid of the Demogorgon all the way through to the hospital scene, I was definitely teary. I was weeping a little bit.
It's a very moving scene. Obviously, they've done a great job over the season of building the stakes, and obviously showing really what a good mother Joyce is, how much she misses Will. We've obviously seen certain flashbacks where you see their bond, and obviously we've seen how Jonathan cares for his brother as well, and just how much of a torment it's been on them, how much of a stress. So it really makes the reunion all the more rewarding. And
definitely,
I think I just like that everyone's there at the hospital as well, all the key characters. So there's the sense of this community between all these characters. Steve's there as well. I mean, obviously partly for Nancy, but it's it's sort of, in some ways, it's there for everyone.
He's involved now. He's been initiated.
Because obviously at the start of the season,
he wasn't.
Never have been there. So that's really good. That's an example of how far he's come, really. And
I also like they have a little shot of Nancy after they've all gone in to see Will, where you can see her looking sad, and it kind of reminds you that, yeah, they got Will back, but Barb is still gone. Her best friend never came back, so they show that Nancy is, even though she is obviously happy that they managed to save Will, she is still grieving, and she's going to have to deal with, with Barb being gone and not being able to save her. So I like that little moment that they show that even though this is happy, there is some bittersweet. It's a little bit bittersweet because they weren't able to save Barb. I mean, I really like the little 1 month later bit that we get, where we get to see how everyone's doing, and we get to see the boys are playing again, and everyone's kind of it's just a really nice kind of like coda.
Yeah, them playing Dungeons and Dragons is great, and it's perfect because it's the way they started the season.
Yeah.
So, and now they've got Will back, so they can play it again, and it's like just like old times in a way. And
yeah, but then they had that little shot of Mike kind of look over his shoulder to the little cave that he'd made Elle, and he's looking a little sad. So they show that obviously he is still thinking about her and misses her. Sure. Now, we spoke about, I think in episode 2 or 3, you asked me how I feel about Nancy and Jonathan versus Nancy and Steve. And I said, wait until the final episode, because this is what cemented which side I was on. So when I first watched this, I was so shocked to see that Nancy was still with Steve. When they reveal at the end of this episode that she is still with Steve, I was like, wow. But then I remember thinking, no, it's a surprise, but it actually completely fits with the whole let's subvert everything about Steve Harrington. In your typical kind of movie like this, if this was like a movie from the 80s, she 100% would have ended up with Jonathan, because everyone thinks that that's just a natural trajectory. But the fact that she ended up with Steve, for me, cemented my love for Steve and Nancy and made me go, okay, because I think I spoke about in the previous episode how, for me, Steve and Nancy feel more organic than Nancy and Jonathan, because we see that they've been dating for a little while. There's a bit of a build-up. They've obviously, liked each other and gotten to know each other, whereas with Nancy and Jonathan, whose brothers have been friends for years, barely know each other and have basically just been thrown together because of this trauma. So I really liked that subversion that he ended up with Nancy. Now, when we do season 2, we're going to have some discussions about where all these relationships go, because that was not a happy season for me. But the end of this season, I loved it. And again, we get more of Steve Harrington being awesome.
She's in the hospital and looking at Will and the others, and then she sort of sneaks out. I think even when I saw that, I didn't think, oh, she's going back to Steve. I didn't jump to that. I just thought, well, maybe she's just giving them some time alone or whatever. I thought, but okay, where's she going? And there's even, because they obviously keep it a secret up to the very last minute almost, because even when she comes down and she gives Jonathan the present and kisses him, you could even read it as they're together sort of thing, but she's just saying, Merry Christmas, goodbye, or you certainly wouldn't have read it than she's with Steve, and that you would just assume the presence from her sort of thing. So they sort of keep it a secret till the very last possible moment, then they can reveal it, which is it's really nicely done. I mean, the way it's played out and stuff, I agree, and obviously for Steve it is the completion of his redemption, because he actually buys the camera for Jonathan.
Yes, and I love that. And I love that he gets Nancy to give it to Jonathan, and he doesn't make a big deal about it being from him. Again, you just see all this altruism from Steve in these last few episodes, showing that even though he's made some mistakes, and he is a stupid teenage boy sometimes, he is a genuinely good person, and he genuinely cares about Nancy. And I just like seeing them cuddled up next to the Christmas tree. They look so nice and happy and natural. And well, when we talk about season 2, we can talk about,
flat. I think later on, because he goes on an arc, you then see the value of it more. But I think at the time you're thinking, really, they're still together?
Not for me. I love it.
A lot of people would. A lot of people would. It just seems There's also the side of it of maybe not knowing that you're getting more at the time. You know, some people might have thought, well, this might just be a one season sort of deal. So I think that adds to the flatness a bit as well, where they think, oh, really? She's gone back to him at the end. And I think there's certainly a flatness where people think, well, from a storyline point of view, does it make sense she would go back to him? Or, you know, it just. I think there's a little bit of that. Now, I think what's funny is then what's the actor's name who plays Steve? Joe something or other, isn't it?
Joe Keegan.
That's it. He's not. His name isn't in the main credits.
No,
like
he's a guest star.
So it does add credence to this idea that maybe they decided later on he was going to be a regular. You know, that maybe for a lot of time they maybe thought, well, he'll be a one season character. I still disagree with you because my point, if we go back to the discussion, my point was never then he's not a nice guy, he's not a nice character. My point is then him and Nancy don't fit as a couple. They don't work.
We definitely disagree on that, but that's okay.
So
that's in character for us.
You can't do this, or well, he redeems himself, so that makes him a good fit for Nancy. I mean, it doesn't work like that. It's a bit like
I always thought he and Nancy were fine together. So like we're definitely not on the same page when it comes to that. For me, I always thought that he and Nancy were fine together. The issue was that he had some stupid moments where maybe he did some stupid stuff that would push her away, and then in my mind he makes up for that, so it makes sense for me that they would end up together. So we definitely do not see eye to eye on this.
I'm assuming, and we don't want to spoil too much, you know, for season 2 in case some people haven't seen it, but I'm assuming, a certain line from him in season 2 is probably going to bother you, and
I think I know exactly which line you're talking about. But yes, when we get to that, we will have discussions.
We have quite a lot to talk about in season 2 and even beyond season 2. But it's all very nice the way this all rounds up, and you know the Chris. It's obviously a great idea to set it at Christmas. The ending of the show, because it's like it's the perfect time to show them they're all back together and stuff. It's fitting that we end with the Byers family at Christmas.
I love that. I love the Byers family together at Christmas, and Will talking about getting an Atari, because yes, let's emphasize that this is definitely the 80s. Definitely the 80s.
Ataris,
and I love Joyce like talking about like the food. She's like, oh, this is overcooked, and she's like, oh, and the potatoes, they're runny. They're so runny. And you know, I just love that. Yeah, that scene where they sit down, and of course we get that shot of Will in the bathroom where he coughs up the slug and then suddenly flashes to the upside down. So it's a litlittle bit of a sequel hook there, or a little bit of a, has he truly escaped the upside down?
I'd forgotten about that scene. So because there are obviously a couple of like certain nods where they leave it open, because there's the stuff with Hopper at the end as well. Because he actually leaves the food in that sort of
in the thing place with the Eggos on top of it, so that gives you a little hint that Elle might still be out there. So I've always thought, and I know that you disagree with me on this, but I have always thought that Stranger Things would have worked as just a one-season show, because I feel that the story is actually complete by the end of it. And these little hints here could have just been, you know, some stories work when you leave them a little bit open-ended. You know, you can end a story with a little bit up in the air. And I think that, you know, showing that Elle is possibly alive and showing that Will is possibly still living the upside down. No, you don't necessarily need to build on that.
It's more interesting too.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, I probably agree with that. I enjoy a show this much because even for people who aren't so keen on the other seasons, there's still plenty to enjoy in them. So, and you enjoy the characters and their growth.
Oh, characters definitely. Like, as we watch the later seasons, like, I find for me, what really keeps me watching are the characters, because they go through so much more growth and like really nice arcs and stuff like that. So yeah, but I just think this season, this ending, you know, that little hint that Elle's still alive and that little hint that maybe Will is suffering from some sort of PTSD, and then you have that beautiful shot of the Byers family. It's just, it could have, if they hadn't had a second season, they could have just ended it there, and it would have been like a really lovely, bittersweet ending, and I think it would have worked.
Show that it's, you know, it's going on an adventure with these characters, and you know, you can do different things. So I mean, that's why I don't mind it than they had more, because it's like they've obviously looked at different aspects of the 80s throughout, so it feels like that sort of thing. But no, I can understand it, because it's always made me wonder if they did plan for more and they knew they were having more, because the Duffers have always claimed, I think, then they did have a 4 or 5 season plan, actually. And I'm not sure, because sometimes they just say that, don't they, when a show, because obviously it being as successful as it was, that sort of dictates then there is going to be more. So
definitely,
I'm not too sure, but that'll be interesting. I think that's always a lot of times the best sort of plan, if you know that you've got 4 or 5 seasons in.
Definitely.
But it's one of those. I think a lot of TV shows in their first season, they mostly tie it up just in case they don't
just
get
in
more.
Case.
And they might leave a little hint, then there could be more.
So good. Everything about season 1 is just so fantastic, and I think this final episode just ends it on such a great place. So if you were to rate the whole season out of 10, season 1, what would you give season 1 out of 10?
I'll give it 9. I think it's really good. It's pretty much perfect. I'm not quite gonna go, you know, the full 10, because obviously that's a really high sort of water level. But it's fantastic stuff. I've really enjoyed rewatching it, and I've definitely got even more appreciation for the quality of the writing and the quality of certain scenes being so tense, and the direction through rewatching it. So, and it's good because the stuff you've been talking about with Steve and the subversion, because I think I've noticed that stuff more second time around than I did first time. So.
Good. More love for Steve Harrington. Always a good thing. Yay! I just love him. Okay, he's like, in case no one has figured it out yet, he is my favorite character in this series. I was talking to Stephen last night.
Even more than like the kids, like the core kids.
Yeah, even more than the kids. I love the kids, and I love Joyce. I love so many of the characters, but like Steve Harrington is like top tier, man. I was talking to Stephen, and I was like, he has done nothing wrong ever, which I know is not true, but I love him. So more Steve love. So good.
And what would you rate the first season?
I'd probably go with a 10, because I loved this first season, and rewatching it was just so much fun, and it was so solid, and it has such a great story. The characters in this season are fantastic. The arcs that they go on, the acting is great, and I just love the way that it grabs you and it just doesn't let go. You know, you have to keep watching because you want to know what's going on, and the mystery and the layers as they unfold, just so good. So yeah, I would give season 1 a 10 out of 10, because I just think it is so solid and just such a good season. So yeah, top tiers for me.
We've said maybe it's slightly weaker, but overall, over the course of the season, and very, very rarely you find something to complain about. So it's very, very consistent. Here in our first review, it changed the game for Netflix.
Yes, it really did.
And it did start a new trend, because you sort of think really suddenly it made the 80s popular again as a decade screen. You suddenly got a lot more like 80s inspired sort of films, TV shows. It's sort of, in a way, you probably wouldn't have got the It films, or you wouldn't have got them in the style they were done, because again, that was done in a very Stranger Things type style, where the kids were very important in that first movie and stuff. Continue on, obviously getting towards season 4. I do like actually in each season they just say Stranger Things 2, for example.
2, 3, 4.
That's referencing almost like 80s type sequel type. So it's almost like this is a sequel, so Stranger Things for the first one. So I will say, actually, Rachel probably won't be on for the season 2 reviews, because she's being abducted by aliens herself. That's what's happening, Rachel. Basically, and she should be. They should plant her back on Earth in time, hopefully for season 3, and we'll get into, and we'll definitely have a season 2 discussion.
We'll do a season 2 discussion, because I will be rewatching season 2 because, well, I'm having surgery and I'll have nothing to do except lying around and watch TV. So I'll definitely watch season 2, and Keith and I will do a season discussion, but I won't be around for the individual episodes. But Keith will do that, and then we'll see where we are when season 3 comes up.
Yeah, I'll crack on with that, and then hopefully we'll be around for. Yeah, Rachel will be back for season 3, so that's all good stuff, and we'll time it about right. Then it'll be leading up to like the end of May, which is when season 4 drops. So exciting stuff with that. So yeah, that's Stranger Things season 1. Let us know your thoughts. What did you think of the finale? What did you think of the first season overall? Like and subscribe as always. Share us out on social media. You can support me on Patreon, patreon.com/borednow. Also, we've done another big Netflix show, which was The Haunting of Hill House, so you can find all those reviews on the channel. We also do regular horror movie reviews, so we tend to do like franchises. We did the Halloween franchise, so all those movies are reviewed and up on the channel. So every time there's a new entry in that franchise, which of course there will be later in the year, Halloween ends. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. But we will review Halloween ends at the end when it comes out in about October. We did all the Scream movies. So again, similar idea when Scream 6 comes out, which we now have a date for. That's going to be March next year. So when that comes out, we'll add that and review that as well. So yeah, that's the general idea. And we're doing long-term franchise at the moment, various different things. Amazing franchise, of course, the best.
Yes, fantastic, very deep, very well
awesome.
made.
You've got to check out the
pinnacle of cinema
movies. And we do different things as well. Like we did a Mulholland Drive review, which was a lot of fun. We recently started the Jurassic Park franchise, so we're going to do that franchise. We also do top 10 lists, so various things. So Rachel, if you want to plug your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays discussing movies and TV shows. My Tumblr and my Twitter accounts are also on my YouTube channel, and Keith will put a link in the description so you can find me easily. So come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, that's great stuff. So thanks, guys. We'll be back with more Stranger Things soon. Take care. See you later. Bye.